the bump and run, the Bristol move.
That's aggressive, but that's good. Good hard racing. Oh, he puts him out of the groove there.
Oh, man.
Will he get the bumper? Yes, he does. Here comes Logano. Logano on the inside. A drag race. They're sideways. And it's going to be Logano getting the win.
The back end of the 18. Kick out.
Yeah, he got into it right there. Moved him out of the way. Just got the lead.
It's almost too early to be racing that hard for the lead, wasn't it?
Never too early to be racing for the lead.
At Bristol.
At Bristol.
Man, this is one of the biggest wins of my career.
It's the bump and run,
Baby.
Yeah, welcome to the Bump and Run podcast. I'm your host, Mike ZY, joined by my two best friends, Matt the Statman Reilly and Eric Daytona Ron. Hope you guys had yourselves a Kyle Larson type of weekend. Hope he's the big winner down in North Wilkesboro for the All-Star race. Got himself $1 million. And make sure you like, share, subscribe. Do all that stuff. Follow us on Twitter at @theletterbumpandrunpod.com. Oh, that's the website. You know where to go. Fellas, how was your weekend? How'd you enjoy the All-Star race weekend? How you feeling?
Well, I didn't get to see a lot of the trucks. I saw the end, like maybe the last 30 laps or so. And when I turned it on, it was, I heard, 12 cautions. And then like not a little while after that, another caution. So that to me was the truck race from what I got out of it. And it seems to be the last couple of weeks, I think we've summed up the truck race as that. A lot of cautions, a lot of beating and banging. But no, I had a good weekend. Had some people over for the race. Got a little tuned up and got rid of some wood that I needed to get burned up in the yard that my buddy Luke drops off. So, did some little cleaning up in the yard this weekend.
There you go. Yeah. I like that. How about you, Matt? How's that grass coming along that you're growing at your house? You still got
coming
on the
along
ground?
good, man. I've got some patchy areas. But it's growing. Like there's some spots that like I could definitely cut the grass now, but we're not there just yet. I'm telling you what, though, like now that we're adults and like homeowners, like the Memorial Day sales are coming up, boys. Like we're gonna get some fire sales at Home Depot and Lowe's for some lawn equipment this upcoming weekend.
Oh yeah, you want to know what? I got to go to the Harbor Freight. I got the coupons in the mail. I've been looking at the flyers, checking out the deals down in Harbor Freight. You guys know I love. But
it's a good thing you love Harbor Freight because everything that you're going to buy this weekend, you're going to need to replace in 2 weekends.
Listen, here's the thing.
You just go back.
I have never had to replace anything that I've bought from Harbor Freight in the last 3 years. So far, so good. And if you have to replace it, then that's when you buy something good. That's when you upgrade to a DeWalt or a Milwaukee, a better brand. Until then, I'm okay working with the cheap tools. They serve me just fine, buddy. And you want to know what? I'm a cheapskate, so I want to save as much money in the short term as possible. I had myself a good weekend. Didn't really do much. It was a quiet weekend. Did a little yard work in the front yard as well, and then just hunkered down for some NASCAR racing all weekend long. So let's jump right into it with the NASCAR news.
The Bump and Run NASCAR News.
So just a couple stories from the last week. Tyler Reddick was docked 10 points and his crew chief was suspended 2 races after having too much ballast in the car. Last week he was ejected at the track and then they assessed the penalties later on in the week. Essentially had too much counterweight in the car to help it turn better. So them cheating Yodas, they're at it again. Eric, you're laughing.
I'm just picturing a race official going over to the crew chief, grabbing him by the ear, and just grabbing him and taking him. Come on, you're done. You're ejected. You're out of here.
Like kicking him in the butt as he's leaving the gate.
Yeah, come on, get out of here.
Go on, get. But so I don't know if the All-Star race counted as an ejection. I think it probably did, but it might be another points paying race, so it might be 3 in total. And then, Casey Kane said he's considering a return to NASCAR. Of course, Casey Kane was kind of sidelined with injuries years ago. I don't know. How do you guys feel about Casey Kane looking to return to the Cup Series?
He was a fan favorite, man. I would like to see Casey come back. Did he mention? I don't know if he mentioned it was going to be like for a full season or a full ride, or if it was just going to be one-offs here and there. But regardless, it's good to hear guys like Casey Kane and Carl Edwards. You can't tell the history of NASCAR without talking about those two at some point. It's good to see that they have interest in coming back. That must mean that the sport's doing something right, that there's guys like that want to come back and at least give it another go. Whether it's full-time or part-time, it doesn't matter. They're still showing that interest. So that's good for the sport, man. It shows that the sport's healthy because there's still these guys that want to come back. I mean, look at Ryan Newman. And I know some of it is that competitive edge where you just can't kick it no matter how long you've been away. But it's good to see.
Yeah, I know.
I'll tell you what.
Oh, sorry.
Casey Kane, he might be one of them that's walking amongst us. I'm talking about them aliens, because he looks exactly like he did when he was racing.
Yeah,
back
he was
in 2012.
better.
You know what I mean?
He doesn't age at all.
He didn't age at all. But besides that, no, Casey, you're right, Matt. He was a fan favorite. He was well liked amongst the garage, and he had talent. He was one of those guys where I thought he kind of, I don't know. I think he left, and I don't know if it was his headspace he was in. I think he was getting frustrated in the way he was performing at the time. I think he knew he was better and could perform better, but he just wasn't living up to that. And I think he just decided, hey, I'm out of this ride. I'm not going to go. It is what it is. And he kind of maybe gave up on himself a little bit. So I would like to see him, come back for maybe a few one-offs. I can't see a full season, but you never know. I mean, I know he still races. So he's definitely got his tools sharpened for sure by staying behind the wheel of something. I think that matters. I think when people, from what I know, Carl Edwards, I don't think he's been driving anything since he's been out. That would be a problem for me, I think, if I'm an owner and want to put somebody in a car. At least Casey's been behind the wheel of some dirt racing and some other forms of racing. So I could see him come back for a few one-offs. Hey, you never know. He could take over, one of those back markers. He could be in the Rick Ware car after Newman doesn't make it, or him and Newman, maybe Rick Ware could be that rotation for drivers coming in, coming out. But, he's part of that NASCAR 75. So, obviously he could draw in fans. And I think if he wants to come back, I think the community would welcome him with open arms.
Yeah, dude, he's got a successful sprint car operation going on too. I mean, I'm looking right now. He's won the 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022 World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series championships. So, I mean, his organization, Casey Kane Racing, is really, really successful. So it's kind of interesting to see that he wants to come back. I'm assuming it's not a money thing. Is it that competition thing? You would think that would get satisfied on the sprint car side of things. But again, I just think it's a good thing that these guys want to come back for whatever the reason might be.
Yeah.
And two, Matt, look at Harvick, what he's doing at his age.
Yeah.
Look at what Martin Truex Jr. is still doing at his age. I mean, these, we've been talking about how many years now that, it's their last year. It's their last year. And they keep performing at a high level and winning races. That's why we talk about Kurt Busch. He was still winning races when he was in that car. So maybe that has something to do with it as well. They're still seeing the performance from some of these people that are getting up there in age and still being able to do it. So maybe they want to give it a shot and see if they still have it. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know why at this point, maybe in the future when they get some of these wrinkles out, I think a lot of people want to drive this new car. And
I think
really,
so too.
I think that's
and really get
too.
a feel for what they're talking about. Oh, this and that, and the aero and this and the tires and the grip. And I think they want to see what it's like for themselves because they've never been in this car. I think that probably is a factor as well.
So I wanted to do some quick Googling on Casey King because I remember after he left Hendrick, he kind of bounced around. I think he ended up at Levine Family Racing. And
Yeah,
I
that
remember,
95 car.
yeah, and then I remember his season got cut short, and I couldn't remember why. I thought it had something to do with some health issues. So I found that he was having really hard times with like severe dehydration and regulating his heart rate and his body temperature. So and like you guys said, he's been running World of Outlaws races for the last 2 years or so. So I'm assuming he kind of figured out those health problems over the last couple of years, and maybe that's where he's like, okay, now I'm ready to get back into a cup car, you know?
Where my brain goes when someone brings up Casey Kane, my first thought is when he won I'm pretty sure it was his last cup win was at Indianapolis. When he won that race, he got out of the car, like go back and watch that. He got out of the car and like he like crumbled next to his car. Like he was in rough shape.
Yeah.
I mean, it was also, I think like 100 degrees or whatever, but like it was bad. And like, there was a concern there, like, oh my God, like is Casey okay? Like, it seems like he's not holding up in these cars. And then, he stepped away shortly after. So
yeah, so
hopefully, obviously, like you said, he's in sprint cars, so it sounds like he might be getting better. He is better, which is great to hear. Like Eric said, he looks like he's in fantastic shape. So, a fan favorite coming back to the sport. It sounds pretty good to me.
It's actually pretty funny. When I searched Casey Kane injury, I found 2 more articles from the last couple of years where he's gotten in like nasty wrecks running that sprint car. So he's probably better off coming back to the Cup Series where it's a little bit safer. I mean, look at Alex Bowman a couple weeks ago, fractured his vertebrae in a sprint car. So like when you're having health problems to begin with and then you're going out, you're putting yourself in dangerous situations, like maybe you want to rethink things a little bit, Casey, but I would like to see him return just to see what he could do. And like you guys said, look at other drivers around his age. He's only 42. He's still got a couple of good years left in him, I think. So it'd be pretty interesting.
Every time I think of Casey Kane or it gets brought up, I think of Pocono. He won August 2011, I think.
Yeah.
And that's when the guy died at Pocono, got struck by lightning out in the main lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I remember Casey Kane, I think, won that race. And that's how I always like, every time I hear Casey Kane, I'm like, that guy got struck by lightning at Pocono that one August race.
That's a morbid memory. But I mean, you know what?
I thought maybe that's what was going to come up when you Googled it. Like, you know what I mean? Like injuries or something. Like,
no, that's that one wasn't mentioned in the Wikipedia page. Next piece though, we got Trackhouse Racing eyeing up supercar champion Shane Van Gissenbergen. I have no idea if I said that correctly. It
sounded great.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah. To drive the Project 91 car at the Chicago Street Race. What do you guys think about that? Obviously, I don't know much about supercar champion Shane Van Gissenbergen, but what do you guys think about just the Project 91 car in general? They had
when I read that in your outline and I saw that in the news, I actually pulled up everything that I know about him, and so I wanted to share it with you guys here today.
Yeah. If you're listening, I hope you're not watching.
Matt is holding a blank sheet of paper in front of his camera right now.
Well, you want to know what? He's a champion, so I'm assuming he's very talented in his discipline. So I would like to see what he could do.
Would that be like didn't Marcus Ambrose run in that same? What did Marcus Ambrose run? That he was a champion. Was that?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
I don't know because you want to know what?
It was similar to where? What did you say? That supercar or?
That's the thing. I didn't really look too much into it because there's like Australian V8 supercars.
The V8, that's where I think. Yeah, I think that's where Marcus Ambrose came from and raced.
I think
road course. I would assume he's got to be a good wheelman, especially for like road courses and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think what Justin Marks is saying when he's doing this Project 91 car is just give me the drivers with the most impossible names to pronounce.
Yeah,
that's why I'm not running my cars.
Yeah. Let's trip up the Bumper Run podcast with pronunciations. And then let's see. This is actually a huge piece of news that's broken over the last week. There's been news of the Xfinity series moving to Amazon, an exclusive streaming deal. Xfinity's sponsorship also runs out at the end of next season, the same year as the end of this current TV deal. What do you guys think about the possibility of not only the Xfinity series racing on streaming only, but just the change in probably sponsorship? I would assume it'd become the like Amazon Prime series or something like that. Thumbs up?
Dude, the quicker, for me, this is just for me personally, I can only speak for myself. The quicker we can get all these things on streaming devices, the quicker I can just cancel my cable subscription, because I've got all these all these streaming services anyway. So I'm just like double paying for stuff that I really probably don't need to be. The only thing I watch on live television is sports anyway. So like the quicker we can get all these sports on streaming apps and services, like the better for me personally, financially. Like, and this is nothing new, right? Like I know as a Notre Dame fan, you know, every year for the past couple of years, they pick a game or two that strictly streams on like Peacock. And I bet you next year it's going to be 2 games, and then it's going to be 3 games. And then before we know it, all of Notre Dame's NBC schedule is going to be on Peacock exclusively. And I just think it's the way of the world that we're going. So, I mean, the Xfinity races being streamed on a service, whether that's Amazon or Peacock or whatever it might be, like I'm totally cool with it. It really doesn't change the way I view racing anyway.
How about you, Eric? What do you think?
I'm going to go a step farther here, and kind of, I don't want to go. I guess it's not off the rails here, but I like it. I think they should, and I think this is a great opportunity for the Xfinity series to really make themselves their own identity.
Yeah,
I think we have an opportunity here. They want to promote, this is where you make names, right? Well, I think you have, just like the trucks and K&N and ARCA, you know, those lower series, they don't have that big of crowds, right? They tend to go to different smaller tracks around the country. Well, what better way in right now, the revival of North Wilkesboro, you know, some of these other localized tracks that might be going under or might not have the funds to continue to run. Why not have Xfinity be a totally separate entity where they do a totally separate schedule, where they hit Myrtle Beach, New Smyrna, they hit some of these places where the modified series goes. The tracks aren't as big, but the crowds aren't as big either. Spread the sport at a smaller level, at more races, different races, rather than having all 3 series at one weekend where people have to travel from hours to get to.
Yeah.
You could have a cup somewhere. You could have Xfinity and trucks at these other small little tracks. And by going to these small little tracks, you might not need to dump as much into like what we saw at North Wilkesboro, and maybe it could be an opportunity for cup dates or to revival down the road. I just think the TV deal's ending. Xfinity's trying to do their thing. Grow the sport there in Xfinity. You know, that to me, that is where you can maybe get some more smaller localized fans and young kids that could go, oh, there's a track here. Oh, there's another track an hour away. Oh, there's another track over here. I think you could spread the sport out farther by doing that. That's just my opinion, though.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, but I want to say on the front end that, like, I am in love with that idea. Like, I absolutely love that idea. That's the true way to grow the sport, right?
Yeah.
You know, you bring these big guys to these smaller tracks because, yes, this is where names are made, but also, like, look at like Ty Gibbs. Like, he was a phenom coming through the Xfinity series. You go back to Reddick, William Byron, Chase Elliott, the list goes on and on and on through the Xfinity series. You can say, like, yo, we were down at our local short track.
Cole Custer.
We got to see that guy race, and it was awesome. The way where I'm coming in to play devil's advocate is the logistics behind how they would do that.
Yeah.
Because most, if not all, of those pit crews that are in the Xfinity series are also full timers up in the Cup series. A lot of them, you know, they share the same transportation and things of that nature. Just from a small little experience that I know of, you know, you've got a spotter in the Xfinity series who's also the bus driver for Christopher Bell. So you've got things like that. Shout out Rich Coleman. But you got logistical things like that you would have to hammer out. Maybe what you do is you take, a weekend where Cup's going to Pocono Raceway and you find a short track within a half hour, 45 minutes of the track and have that as a standalone race. That's a doable thing as well, I would think.
I got even a better idea. How about your NASCAR, right? NASCAR. You listening? How about you invest in yourself?
Right.
And you get more spotters. You get more pit crews.
Yeah.
You actually have an institution. You actually start a foundation that you could say, hey, instead of going to school to learn about, God knows what in today's world, you say, you know what, when I graduate high school and I'm done playing high school football, I'll never be able to go be in college or in NFL. But you know what? I love NASCAR. Maybe I could go to this academy for 12 weeks and learn how to become a spotter or a pit crew or a gas man or something. NASCAR needs to develop a school so that they could build themselves. NASCAR needs to expand, not just a fan. We talk about the fans. How about NASCAR? Put some money back into your own product and how about you have an assigned team? How about you give more money to the teams to hire more pit guys? Put a salary cap where hey, you could spend this money on pit crews, on this, on schooling, but you can't put it towards engineering and stuff like this. You give them a budget to homegrown, not only their race car drivers and their sim program, but their actual employees.
Dude, the academy, that's something
make a
that I've never
TV show
thought
about
of.
it too. A reality show, NASCAR Academy. Could you have what it takes to be a fucking pit crew member?
Yeah, dude, that's something I've never thought of before, and that's an amazing idea if you think about it. That just gave me chills on my arm, Eric. Just doing an academy like that, like you said, a lot of athletes just aren't cut out for the next level of Division I, II football, basketball, whatever it might be. But hey, I grew up watching NASCAR. I love it. Let me apply. I'm assuming there's some sort of application process, just like a college would be. You get accepted and you go through it, and then hey, you cut your teeth, you grind your teeth in the ARCA series. You make, you're not making great money probably, but you're learning just like an internship right out of college.
Yeah,
just
you don't start at the top when you get out of college. You have to start at the bottom and work your way up. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. I love that. I would like to see that. I'd like to see them invest more in themselves to help these teams out instead of letting them struggle and have to pay for themselves. So that's where my mind frame goes. It's I think the Xfinity series right now and the way that it's run and the way the races are going, it's very, very awesome racing. I think there's an opportunity here for a marketing value and to really spread the sport.
All right. You guys threw a lot of information out there and I want to address most of it. But I didn't want to cut you guys off. So let's start with let's work backwards.
I blacked out there. Sorry.
Yeah.
So let's work backwards. I don't know how to become a spotter, but I do know how a lot of these pit crew guys are recruited. And it's kind of like what you guys were just talking about, where they'll go to D1 schools and find athletes who aren't going to go to that next level. And they do recruit college athletes a lot. In fact, you could kind of see part of this process on a free show from the free streaming service Crackle. If you've ever heard of Crackle, it's called Road to Race Day. It follows Hendrick Motorsports in the season where Junior got hurt, I think, and Jeff Gordon replaced him after Jeff Gordon had retired. And it actually shows a lot of the pit crew training in the first 2 episodes or so. So it's a really good documentary series to watch and kind of see how the inner workings of Hendrick Motorsports and kind of a lot of race teams work. I've suggested that in the past. I thought it was a fantastic watch. It's 12 episodes, an hour each. Definitely worth checking out for free on Crackle. Okay, just back to the streaming service itself. I think streaming would be fantastic for us as fans. The thing that is concerning to me is, will it hurt the series itself? And this is where I feel like the TV deal is super important and the money that goes back to the teams. Because right now, how do race teams make most of their money? Selling sponsorships. How do you value a sponsorship? How many eyes are going to be on that product? So now with streaming, you have better true numbers instead of just television ratings to work off of. But now you're also limiting yourself to the amount of casual fans to find the sport, and just in general, just the amount of people that might watch something on a streaming service. I don't know the exact numbers. It's something I'm sure someone way smarter than me has been researching for a long time. I'm just using the WWE network as an example. Years ago, WWE put out their own network. It was like $10 a month. They moved all the pay-per-views to that network. So now you lost pay-per-view money. Now, of course, NASCAR doesn't use pay-per-view money, but it's still kind of the same. As long as you can maintain about the same audience of the Xfinity series to watch on a streaming platform, then I think it works sponsorship-wise. I'm just worried that we're going to cut ourselves off to potential viewers, especially if it's a paid streaming service. Now, if it's Amazon and you can watch for free, I know they've been pushing this Amazon free V, which is like their free streaming platform with commercials and whatnot. So if they push it to that, I think it could be very successful, because then you just have to download the app. You watch the ads as if you normally would. I'm just worried about the team surviving, because right now in the Xfinity series, we hear Dale Jr. talk about it all the time. It's really hard to make money as a race team. So I would hope that if whatever streaming package, more money would get funneled from the TV provider or whatever, Amazon, back to the race teams to kind of counteract some of that lost sponsorship that could potentially happen. Does that make sense to you guys? Like what I'm laying down?
It does. It makes sense. And you're right. Like there's a give and take to everything. I think you will have your core 80% of your fan base who's going to watch every week, who, is going to tune in. And then you have that other 20 that like, okay, they're flipping through. My dad, some guys at work that know I'm into it. They'll watch it for a little bit, but then go out, do something, come back, have it on, like your occasional watcher. I'm looking at it on the flip side. Maybe
you get more of a dedicated kind of audience.
The way that the apps go, where you start out, you have the free, you can watch. Here's your race. You get your race. But if you want to pay, just like on the NASCAR app, if you want to pay $5, you get the scanners. You want to pay $10, you get the cameras.
Extra access.
There might be a ladder to that they'll come up with to please everybody. Everyone can watch it. Here you go. It's free. That's what they'll get everyone reeled in with. It's free. It's free. And then they'll start giving you the upgrades like Flow Racing. They might even make it like that, where a month is $40, but a whole year is $180. And it's like, well, I might as well just do the 180. You know what I mean? I guarantee it'd be something like that, where they'll make their money, but they'll disguise it as clever wording and this and that. I think if they're looking to already go that way, like you said, there's somebody, they already have all of those little avenues where they could make that money they possibly will lose with those casual viewers. And I think they have a plan to make that up for sure.
And like I said, it seems like Amazon is the one that's trying to get exclusivity rights.
Everybody has
to the
it too.
Xfinity series.
It's so popular. Put it this way.
And like right now, isn't Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime? Like, isn't that the whole deal?
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
NFL, let them pave the way for us.
Exactly.
Because let it become popular. Once it's popular for NFL and you get the people used to Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime, then Amazon Prime, I remember at first I'm like, this blows. When the NFL Network first came out, it was only on NFL Network and I couldn't watch some of the games. I never had NFL Network. I'm like, this sucks. But NFL Network, then it becomes part of the everyday package. And then, Amazon Prime becomes part of everybody. Everybody has it. And like, so the first couple years, you might get the bitch and the complaining.
Yeah.
But once it transitions and it becomes just a normal NBC, Fox, TNT, I think the fan base will just be like, oh, okay, this is just what it is, And I'm sorry, but I don't care about the top half of our fan base, because guess what? What are we looking for? New fans, and the fans that are currently watching that are our age right now in your 30s.
Yeah.
So who's going to be watching in the next 30? Us. We're already there. So like, I'm not catering to those other boomer fans that bitch and complain about our racing we have now anyway. You had your opportunity. You had your heyday. Let us have ours. I don't want to cater to them. Streaming, like Matt said, it's going that way. The world is going that way. have to stay up with the times.
Dude, it's all going that way. I mean, even like all the news outlets have their own apps and streaming services, and everything's going that way where like cable television will be a thing of the past eventually. Whether that might be another 10 or 15 years down the road, I don't know. But eventually, like cable television as we know, it's going to cease to exist. In the current form that it's in.
Yeah. And that's why I said I think it's great for us as fans and viewers to have everything on the app that we could get. I just worry about the actual money aspect of going to the teams and the survival of those teams and everything.
Well, maybe with like how you said, Whitey, in cable, it's a broad thing. It's so many people, it's an estimate of who was watching. Subscription based,
then you know exactly who's watching.
They know exactly how many subscriptions, who's watching it, how long they watched it, and maybe they could tailor to their actual fans more. Yeah. Maybe they'll get data from that where certain sponsors will ask for the NASCAR's data, right? Yeah. Let me see where my product is going and who is watching your sport. I think you get a more narrowed down idea of who's actually watching on a week-to-week basis. And that might, at the same time, it might deter sponsorship because like, these guys aren't even going to pay attention. It's not worth it. But you might also have people be like, ooh, look at what they're doing. I have a product similar to that. It might also bring more sponsors to tailor towards the fan. And then when the fan engages with the sponsor's more willing to stay around. And like we said earlier, Whitey, what are we? We're probably in the top 1% of fans where, hey, we engage. I had a Monster. I drink Monster because that's the series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I tend to pick stuff that my driver or our drivers do and go to. That's how you keep sponsors around, and that's how the sport in turn, I think, makes money by us as fans engaging in the sport. So I think it go both ways. It's gonna be a topic of conversation for years to come, obviously, because it's ending.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna get a lot of backlash at first. But I think I'm going to stay on the front end of this, and I think I'm going to be for it because this is the way.
Yeah. And then to the standalone weekends, I think that's a perfect idea, and I wish they would do that more because I just think it's fantastic. That's the way it used to be. That's the way Truck Series used to be. I understand, like Matt said, with logistics and everything, but man, I wish we could get like different tracks on different weekends.
The other thing that I thought about too is like the radio and TV broadcast teams, like they use the same track because of budgets and everything like that. So just. I'm sure that like
racing comes in. That's where these apps come in. You know what I mean? Where like you have a certain
strike a deal with them, and
right. Like I think it could all be worked out. They specialize in those little short tracks and those mom and pop grassroots things where they have it live. It might not be the most camera shots or the quality, but you're getting it. What I mean?
It's nothing different than what we get now from Fox. So
no, for real.
Drop off.
You're right, Matt. You're right.
Fucking bumper cam happens when there's a bump and run for the lead.
And then they never show the replay. Anyways, we got real into the woods with this one. So
sorry about that. Was my bad.
No, that's okay.
But
you want to know what? It's a conversation I'm sure we're going to keep having throughout the season, especially as more and more information about this TV deal comes out. So let's move on because we got one last piece of NASCAR news, and then we can jump into the All-Star Weekend. Goodyear announced they will run a softer tire for New Hampshire. It seems like they're listening to the fans. I'm excited about it. I'm hoping for good tire wear. What do you guys think?
2 thumbs up. Softer tire wear. Yes, please.
All right. And
you saw what those softer rain tires did. The racing was better.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, please. It's one of the 3 things that we talked about that NASCAR needs to change in order to get us better racing. Right. So, hey, one step closer.
All right, and let's jump into the NASCAR weekend. We had a Truck Series race that paid points, but we had a non-points winner in Kyle Larson. And then in the Cup Series, Kyle Larson led twice for 145 laps, swept the weekend in North Wilkesboro. The All-Star race lasted 1 hour, 20 minutes, and 59 seconds. We had 2 cautions for 13 laps, 3 lead changes among 2 different drivers. Kyle Larson, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, and Chase Elliott. Your top 5. Fellas, let's jump right into the race grades.
It's our NASCAR weekend race grade.
And let's start with Eric this week. What did you think about the race?
I didn't mind it. Actually, like I saw a lot of the buzz on, but I kind of cut myself off this morning when I was talking to you guys this morning and whatever. Like,
yeah,
I was taking notes down in my phone based off of what I felt during the race. Like, I didn't want to get persuaded by reading what everybody else thought in the industry or drivers, whatever. Just what did I get out of that race? And I gave it a B-.
Okay.
I liked what I saw in those heats. Like I said, those wet weather tires actually produced better racing.
Yeah.
That Barry and Ty Gibbs, battle for the lead was awesome to watch until the 34 fucking destroyed that battle.
Yeah.
Going into Sunday, you watch the heats, you knew everyone was gonna, you had to be aggressive in the beginning. And that's what we saw. Aggressive right in the beginning to try to get down low to that inside lane.
Yeah.
Everyone was gonna have to work to get down. So I knew the start was gonna be aggressive to get down there, gain your positions quick. But then the 99, about 20 laps in, he started to stink up the field, as Clint Boyer would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once that first caution came out, that's when you saw some of the passing. You watch Larson come from the back all the way through to the front, as well as the 23, as well as the 45, as well as the 43. I watched all of them moving up through there, passing people on the outside.
Yeah.
Larson got most of his passes done on the outside, putting people 3 wide. So the first 100 laps was perfectly fine, in my opinion. Now the second 100 is where it gets a little worse.
Yeah.
I think at this moment, the broadcast started buying into the ass whooping. And I mean by Clint Boyer.
Yeah.
I really wish he didn't say Larson's stinking up the field. Larson's stinking up the field. I wish he would have shut the fuck up and just said, hey, in his ear, you're controlling this race now, Clint. If you know it's stinking, right?
Yeah.
You know the racing isn't good. You point out where there is
other battles,
little bit of racing, little bit of battles going on. So, like, to me, I felt like Clint right there got it rolling in people's heads that this race isn't good. This race is going in a certain direction.
Yeah.
So,
I'll even take that one step further. Sorry to cut you off, Eric.
No,
is put a positive spin on it.
Right.
This is awesome what we're seeing. Larson's kicking ass. Like you see it in a UFC fight or in an NFL game where it's just an absolute blowout or someone's just beating the shit out of someone. That's part of sport, right? You're going to have somebody who just dominates and so instead of stinking up the joint, I agree with you, Eric, like that. And it might have even worked on me now that I'm thinking about it. Like you just put such a negative connotation on it where it's like, let's sit back and appreciate what we're watching, a good old fashioned ass kicking, like what used to happen at North Wilkesboro, and just lean into the whole nostalgia part of it. Right. I think, like you said, broadcast drives the way people are intaking. Broadcast drives the opinions of what's going to be formed of the race.
That's right. Because now this is my point. Like there was like you show from 6th to 10th, show from 11th to 16th, where they're nose to tail bumping. And this is where it bothered me because Clint, there's no racing up front. That's fine. But explain to the people watching this style of race. Clint Boyer should have known what this style of race is. Okay, it's single file on the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's still racing going on. It's the driver versus the track.
Yeah.
So, yes, you're single file, but guess what? Those guys, they were right up on that wheel. They were driving the shit out of those race cars. And if you just messed up one bit, you weren't going to lose one spot. You were going to lose 4 or 5 spots. Explain that to people when you're racing and you're battling. They might not be battling side by side. There might not be passing battles back and forth. The racing is against the driver and the track. And if that driver missed a cue, if he got up a little bit, used his tires up too much early, and he slipped up and his ass end got out just a little bit, one guy underneath, not just one guy. 2 guys underneath, 3. You're on the top. You're getting steamrolled. You're probably going to go back to the back. Explain that, Clint. Explain that style of racing and explain how hard it is to keep that single line, to keep your car pinned down there on this racetrack. And I just thought Clint, just didn't do a good job at keeping the positivity going during that race. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you guys either. That race stunk. It did. I'll admit that. I'm just tired of the bitching that we've done already.
Yeah.
We were on a 3-race streak of good racing. I'm not going to let this one all-star race, no points thing turn this around and make me feel a certain way. It's supposed to be entertainment. It's the all-star race. The revival wasn't there for the racing. The revival was there to create buzz, to create the around the history of our sport, bring something cool back. It's the all-star race. It's for the fan to show up. And if you were a fan and went there this weekend, I bet you had the time of your life.
I was jealous. I was so jealous.
So to me as an event, I thought they nailed it. And, we all know what track struggled this year. Short
tracks. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Especially cooler at night. I knew the racing probably wasn't going to be that great because the short track racing wasn't that great this year. So to me, the expectations of the racing wasn't really that high for me, which I guess maybe that's why I just took it as it is. Yeah. When you're a race fan and there's a track you're going to where it's mostly strategy, right? You tune your brain to what you're about to see and get your mind into a strategy race. In those first 20 laps, when I knew how this race was going to go and how it's going to be, I changed the way I was absorbing this race.
Yeah.
I looked for what I wanted to watch, not what Fox was showing me or whatever. I absorbed the race differently once I knew how it was going to go. And you look at things differently. I decided to stay on the side of I'm watching Kyle Larson kick ass.
Yeah.
I missed the opportunity to watch Jimmy Johnson in the early 2000s dominate and do what he did. I wasn't involved in the sport. I saw it on ESPN every single time that they had Jimmy Johnson wins again. I remember hearing about it all the time. I didn't get to experience that. Jimmy Johnson got a lot of hate because he was good. I feel like I'm not going to do that with Kyle Larson right now. I'm going to appreciate what I'm watching on the racetrack, and I'm going to watch him dominate sometimes because I didn't get to see Jimmy do it. I think I have an opportunity here to appreciate and watch someone do something that is very, very rare to do, which is when you're an all-star field, that's the best of the best that you're going up against.
Oh, yeah.
And he made everybody look like a bunch of, K&N ARCA racers out there. Appreciate it. And that's the side that I'm leaning on. It's the all-star race. I just had a good time. It's supposed to be entertaining, create buzz. And now we're going into Memorial Day for the Charlotte, Coke 600. So to me, I looked at it as a broadband event. I looked at it as a non-points. This is creating buzz around the sport, history, get some grassroots involved because you need that to grow as well.
Yeah.
And the racing was not good, but I'm here just to try to keep this positive train rolling that we have going because we can get derailed pretty easily, us three. I know that. Yeah. So I'm just trying to keep that positive train rolling.
So I just want to talk about a couple of points you made because I think you made some really great points, and I'm going to give my race grade while I do it too. So I gave it a C+. I thought this race was perfectly fine, kind of like you. Kind of what I expected from the history of North Wilkesboro. So I kept my expectations low. I know a lot of people were expecting a barn burner, slugfest type short track race. I really wasn't going into it like that. I was expecting to see a lot of single file lines, kind of like what we saw. And I think you make a great point. Like the restarts were super exciting because you knew guys had to be aggressive early on. And I like that. I thought it was great when we saw a lot of like 3 wide where guys are just on the outside trying to make hay. You saw it work for a couple of guys. You saw it not work for others. Like I'm just trying to think of like the beginning of the race. I think like Josh Berry got stuck on the outside for a while. He dropped kind of like a rock. Maybe William Byron too.
Like a rock.
Bone arrow straight. Anyways, so I thought that stuff was really interesting, and I agree with you. I think Clint Boyer kind of gave up on the race at a certain point.
Yeah.
I thought it was really weird when he said, "Oh man, thanks for these fans sticking this one out." I'm like, just as a broadcaster, like, why would you say that? You're kind of shitting on your own product. So I don't know. And I know we shit on Clinton a lot. I wouldn't have made that choice. And I think, like you said, the broadcast could really amplify the race. Like, think about, I would love to have heard what the PRN the PRN broadcast was like for this race, just to see what those guys were talking about. And even like when it was, single file, like you said, it's the car versus the track. I was most interested in watching cars come off, turn 2 or turn 4, and you see them like slipping and sliding. Like they literally looked like they were just wiggling around. And I thought that was super interesting. And they really didn't talk about it much. I wish they would. I think the only thing, and I really think we needed a good old fashioned phantom caution from NASCAR. Realign everyone up, get them bunched back up, and have them battle.
All right, this is along those lines, Whitey, and this is where I had down too. I think we didn't get the full product because it was. Did you hear that outside?
It was probably like a motorcycle.
Right? All right,
okay.
We're gonna have to stop for a second. I thought one of you guys farted.
Yeah, it sounded like a fart. Yeah,
kids riding their dirt bikes in the backyard. My bad.
Yeah.
But no, like you, the dirt bike kids. Oh
yeah.
Now I totally forget what we were talking about.
I don't know. It doesn't matter at this point. Matt, what was your race grade?
Oh God, I appreciate Eric. You coming on here and keeping us positive and everything.
Yeah. I wanted to say, as an event, I thought the event as a whole was fantastic. So like that's why I gave it a little plus.
Before you go, Matt, that's what it was. I think we got gypped a little bit, and we did North Wilkesboro dirty by not having a points race there, because I think
with stages and everything,
race, 400 laps, you give them 10 sets of tires. Now the drivers aren't babying their tires. Now you have, be aggressive. I think that's where the comers and goers come in. You have a full field where lap traffic plays a part of that. The field is tighter then. You don't have as much clean air and space in front of you. I think if this is a full race, if we have full stages, full opportunity for cautions, tire strategy, I think we see a different race. I think the format didn't go over as well as they expected it to. I think they tried going, quote unquote, old school. If you always say, the racing was better in the 80s and the 90s, well, guess what? You better have loved that race that you saw, because
that was a straight up 80s, 90s race. Yeah.
So everyone that bitches about stages and they don't like stage racing, well, guess what? I think we could have used a couple stage cautions there so that you could, I'm going to take tires. I'm not going to take tires. I'm going to take 2. See what happens there.
We needed that phantom caution.
You're right. Cautions, like I've said earlier in the season, the tire blowouts and all those cautions helped the racing last year. So, like, I think there are times when cautions, they help the racing because it flips the strategy of these teams tremendously and causes a lot of parity, which you get the comers and the goers. So I would like to see them do a different format next year when they go back, because it's a 2-year deal, right?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't know. And
I don't believe they've announced anything quite yet. I would assume they didn't do all this just for an all-star race.
That's what I'm assuming. Yeah, that's what I'm assuming.
And I'm going to say this, take this with a gigantic grain of salt, but I saw one tweet that this tweet's rumor was that Dover might be going away and being replaced by North Wilkesboro. I hope not. I really do. But I'm assuming when you're putting this much money into a track, it's not going to be a one-off deal.
If Xfinity is gone, guess who their 2 closest tracks are for Xfinity's home race?
Dover and Pocono. Yeah. So I'm not, honestly, I would absolutely hate if we lose Dover for North Wilkesboro. So I hope it doesn't happen. And again, this was just one tweet from a random account that I saw. So who the fuck knows? So don't take that with any type of authority or grain of salt. It's just like, It's a possibility, though. You know what I mean?
I would grow an immediate personal, and this is not joking or hyperbole or anything. I would grow an immediate and personal vendetta against North Wilkesboro if that happened. We've gone for the past couple years to Dover. I've fallen in love with that track. So
yeah.
And it's put on great racing, and the crowds have been phenomenal there. So we'll just move past that because, like you said, we don't want to feed into any kind of rumors, unfounded rumors, anything like that. So
especially it was, I want to reiterate, it was just a random Twitter account that I saw. So again, I don't know who the fuck tweeted it. It was just something I saw. I go, man, I hope that doesn't happen.
It was me.
It was Matt. Anyways, Matt,
I was strong as I could be, like a rock. I gave the race a C. Once again, I told you guys this. I watched the race under foggy conditions. I was super tired, long weekend. That's on me. That's not the track's fault. That's not the sport's fault. That's how I consume the race. And when that happens, I tend to watch it through a foggy lens. So shame on me. So take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But I thought the race was okay at best. I just thought that, and Eric, you swayed me with everything, that you talked about as well. And I admit that I'm probably in the minority with mine. And again, I don't even know if I fully agree with my own opinions, just because I know how I consume the race, and it's not the most fair way to consume a race. But from what I saw, I thought that the race got so much hype, which it was rightfully so. I just thought that it was a blah race. I don't think I'm going to be talking about it from a week from now. I don't think I'm going to be talking about it a month from now or 5 years from now. Now as an event, I'll give it an A+. I thought the marketing arm of NASCAR and Fox, we do a lot of shitting on Fox. I thought the marketing arm of NASCAR and Fox did a fantastic job of kind of telling the story of North Wilkesboro and the history of North Wilkesboro as a community, not only a track and the sport. It went hand in hand, going all the way back to the moonshine running days of Junior Johnson and all that. I learned a lot this weekend, which is really cool. When I get any opportunity I get to have a stroll down NASCAR history lane, I really appreciate doing so. So all of that was awesome. So I refuse to let anything that I saw on the racetrack take away from the cool stuff that we got to experience as true NASCAR fans this weekend. And like I said, taking in the history of the sport was really, really cool. For the racing, I also didn't realize, the last time they raced was 96, 97.
96, yeah.
My dad was watching racing at that time. I remember, the races always being on, but obviously I wasn't really consuming them at such a young age. So I didn't know how the track raced. Shame on me for not really doing the research going into the race.
I told you for many podcasts how the race.
I don't listen to anything that comes from your square, Whitey. I'm sorry. No.
Well, did I not prove you wrong? Huh?
I'm kidding. I don't know. I just, there were bright spots. We can't ignore how impressive it was to watch Larson and Bubba and the 45 and the 43, like Eric mentioned, rip through the field. There was passing. I'm also a firm believer of giving everything, a chance. That doesn't change with this track for me. So yes, I would like to see more cup races here before I'm ready to give a solid opinion of the track.
Yeah.
I liked, like I said, I think what I would prefer to lean on as far as what I took out of the weekend was just a cool history of the track. And another thing too that we didn't talk about yet that I know all three of us really appreciate is the pit crew challenge on Friday night.
I thought that was so awesome.
Cool that we shine a light on those guys. I know Hendrick Motorsports is doing a little mini series that they're releasing on YouTube that they tweeted out about just some of the backstories of some of the people behind the scenes of racing. And they're little 7, 8, 9 minute video clips, so they're very, very easily digestible. They've only released a couple so far, but the one was about how the pit crew box gets set up and all the electronics and the IT that goes into that on a race day, and how much is really done behind the scenes that nobody knows about. The next episode was about the tire and how there's a person dedicated to each team with just the tires and all the science that goes into it. Mm-hmm. I know the next one's going to follow a spotter around, and I'm going to tie that all back into like the pit crew. Cruz, you know, those guys are traveling just as much as these $1 million faces and Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick.
Yeah.
They just don't get any of the notoriety or nearly the pay that these guys do. But they're on the road away from their families just as much as these drivers are. And I think it's really cool to shine a light on them because they're a gigantic part of the sport that the layman doesn't really think about. But they're as big of a part of the sport and as part of the winning as almost as much as the driver himself is, him or herself is.
Well, yeah, that's why they, you know, it was up to those pit crews. That's the starting spot. Here you go. That just goes to show how important it is during a race. We talk about it all the time, Denny Hamlin especially. How his pit crew could ruin a nice, great day for a driver. I also, to stick with the pit crew stuff, Matt, a great point. Got to shout out Ty Gibbs and that crew. You know, that was phenomenal. And how about Ty? Knew the names to every single one of his pit crew members. And like, I don't know. I saw a different Ty Gibbs this weekend where he looked a little bit older. He like held himself a little bit differently. Yeah. I think he's learned. I think he's turning a new leaf. And I just thought it was impressive that, you know, that shows that you have to spend, at least that's what the guys in the booth said. You have to spend a lot of time in the shop and around those guys to really know them. And, you know, I didn't know this. I guess the drivers aren't in the car when they're practicing the stops.
No, it's just like a random guy.
It's just a random that they just come in to do that. And they think Ty might actually be at the shop in the car,
running the car,
practicing with the guy.
Mike Joy even said, and I agreed with Mike Joy, not that my opinion of Ty Gibbs matters to anybody outside of this podcast, but like Mike Joy even said, like he just went way up in my book because he knows all that. You can tell he's putting in the time, which means that he's going to be, I mean, we already know how talented he is, but if he's putting in all that time, that's going to pay off on Sundays eventually.
I tell you what, and just as a driver, hitting that pit box just perfectly, that takes a lot of time to build that experience. And because he's so young, if he's going into the garage every week and practicing those, that's good on him because like that's how you become an elite talent is not only everything you do on the track, but what you do on pit road and hitting that box perfectly every time. So.
It's the little stuff. You hear about it in all sports. To become elite at something, it's the little stuff that you have to become good at. And all this little stuff adds up to big stuff, and that's where your champions are made.
How about I think it was the 3 car, and it might have even been the 54 Gibbs too. It might have been the 7 of LaJoy. The choreography where the jackman reached behind, grabs the jack, and swings around all in one fluid motion to keep himself going. I thought that was really, really cool, and I wonder if they just did that choreography for the All-Star race to try and get a fast time, or if that's what they actually do on race day. Because it was pretty cool to see. Yeah,
you want to know what? And if they found speed practicing for this pit crew challenge, maybe they try it out on race day too. Right. It made me wonder, and I don't want to get into the weeds of this at all, but I noticed that Gibbs doesn't do that circle around stop anymore.
I noticed it too.
And you want to know what? I didn't notice it last year if it ended at some point last year or what. It was just I noticed it during the pit crew challenge. But do you guys want to jump into the checkers and wreckers?
3 wide for the lead. 1 lap to go.
It's this week's checkers and wreckers.
All right, boys, let's jump into the checkers and wreckers. We started with Daytona Ron for the race grade, so we'll start with Matt. What'd you think? What's your checkers and wreckers?
So my checkers goes to pretty much what we've been talking about, and my checkers will flow actually right into my wreckers, so I'll just keep it moving. My checkers is just the fact that this weekend even happened. This place was dead and buried, just a year and a half ago, and with some TLC from Dale Jr., Marcus Smith, and NASCAR, they were able to revive this place, and there were still things that needed to be hammered out if we're going to come back here in the future, which will lead me into my wreckers. But I thought they did an exceptional job at bringing this track back. I mean, if you look at some of the pictures and old videos that they were playing throughout the weekend, like, dude, that place was a literal ghost town. As a matter of fact, Junior did a NASCAR ghost track or whatever. What's the name of the show?
Lost Speedways.
Lost Speedways. He did a lot of speedways on it, even like that thing was done for, and they brought it back. So kudos to everyone involved. But like I said, there was some things that I think that it still needs work, which brings me into my wreckers. Did you guys see the spotter stand this weekend?
Oh yeah, and it was
thank you.
Yeah.
It was essentially, for anyone who didn't see it, and if you're listening to our podcast, you're obviously a hardcore NASCAR fan, so I'm assuming you did see it. But for anyone who might not have, it was essentially scaffolding with a platform thrown on it, which they were expecting to hold about 30 to 40 grown-ass men on that platform. Now, albeit, nothing happened. Nothing bad happened. It held up. It did its job. So, but it did not look safe at all. And I just don't understand how that got overlooked. We're talking about, how important these crews are, these pit crews are to the sport. Well, the spotters are mandatory.
Yeah.
They're just for the driver half the time. Like they're driving for the driver actually most times.
Absolutely. They're just as important as any other cog in the sport. And you got to do better than that for them. You got to give them better conditions than that. And I know Door Bumper Clear always talks about, there are 3 spotters. It's literally what the show is based around, but they do a pretty good job of painting what the conditions are up on the top of those roofs. Dude, those roofs that they stand on to spot races, like they're not shaded. They're out in the elements. It's hot up there. They barely get water up there. It's brutal conditions. And again, just like the pit crew guys, I don't think the spotters get enough appreciation. And to see that they were essentially in scaffolding on the edge of a grandstand, on the top of a grandstand, it just, in super unsafe conditions, it just made me think, like, why are we doing the spotters like that? So Wreckers goes to whoever made that decision.
So I saw a great tweet from one of the engineers for 2311. He's a strategy and system engineer, J.R. Houston. He took a picture of it, and the tweet goes, "I took statics in engineering school, and there is no way that stand can support the weight of all those egos," which I thought was fantastic. If you ever listen to the DBC boys podcast, Brett Griffin in particular, but I thought that was a great tweet. But it was like scaffolding. And last week, the DBC guys were kind of complaining too. It was on, I think, turn 3 and 4, which is the downhill turn. So you're like looking up. It wasn't even in the right area to see the whole entire track. So yeah, I agree. That is a big wreckers. How about you, Eric? What's your checkers and wreckers?
My wreckers goes to Michael McDowell, the 34. What are you doing, guy? Now this is just, it's been happening. He wins one race and the guy think he owns the racetrack and he could do whatever the hell he wants now. I'm sorry, Michael McDowell, but you can't. He just seems to be rubbing multiple drivers the wrong way here. And,
and multiple fans.
I guess like Ty Gibbs after the race said that, the 34 drove through him a couple times earlier in the season and, he had a run. You're not going to get off the bottom. So he went underneath the 34, put the 34 into the 31, 3 wide, uncomfortable. Well, they get into it and, he gets taken out. I thought it was just a shitbag move for him to pull in front, and the way he held up Ty, like Ty is battling there for second. Like I thought it was just like, come on. Like even the broadcast booth was like, you can't, like you tried wrecking him once. You better not hold him up again. Like you failed at doing that. Like I thought the 34 and Michael McDowell came out of that situation just looking bad overall. So
Denny made a good point.
The wreck though. So there was a lot of nitpicking for the wrecks. So I always love wrecking that 34.
Denny made a good point. I only listened to a little bit of his podcast because it came out a little later in the day, but he said like, hey, like Michael McDowell, he affected the outcome of that race. Like Ty Gibbs probably could have won that race, and he affected it. Whether it's a non-points paying race or whatever, like he affected the outcome of that race by doing his shenanigans. So like, let's be a little consistent.
And you know what? I'm there for salty Denny. I'm there because if you got penalized, he should be salty every instance. He should be writing them down, saving those videos, so the next time he does it, be like, well, what about
here's
this?
all the evidence.
You know what I mean? Right. So yeah, I agree with Denny there being salty. I stick to that too, because there was even a couple weeks ago there was another instance where it's like, how come he didn't get in trouble for doing what he did? So my checkers though.
Well, Eric, before you go on, I just want to reiterate, this isn't a new behavior from Michael McDowell either since he won that race or anything. If you pay attention to Michael McDowell for years, it's a weird statement, but like I've seen little run-ins that he's had throughout the years, either on road courses with like Daniel Suarez, where he'll push him
Suarez
off.
threw
And,
fists at him. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
They
Oh,
fought. They fought.
and then this isn't even the first All-Star Open that he's hooked someone, or at least tried to. He hooked Bubba Wallace down in Bristol the one year when we went to Bristol for the All-Star race. And especially on road courses, like we give McDowell a lot of credit for being a good road course driver, but he's super aggressive and he'll push you right off the course and everything. So like he's not super clean either. So don't let that demeanor off track fool you. But
Hey, Michael McDowell, you need to
get
it together.
And eventually
I might have been the best one.
eventually we will too. What's your checkers?
My checkers has to go with the guy that dominated, Kyle Larson.
Yeah.
You have to give it to him. That was just an all-timer. That was, to me, an ass whooping. You know what I mean? I love that he tweeted out, what's his name? Bloomquist. He's like, I wish they put me to the tail of field. I would have lapped them all again or something. And he Larson tweeted like a little like tongue out, face or whatever, like ha ha ha. And you know what? That was awesome. To me, that was awesome. Everyone complained about the tires and how rough that the track was. Everyone was complaining how loose they were. We couldn't hold the car. We had to stay on the bottom. I can't go here. The fall off over 20 laps for some cars was drastic. Larson figured out how to not abuse his stuff.
Yeah.
He learned where the speed was. He learned where these patches were. The grip strip in 3 and 4. At the end of the race, they showed Bubba Wallace's line and Kyle Larson's line.
Yeah.
They were exactly the same, besides one thing. The exit coming off of 4, Larson got all 4 of his tires on the concrete at the bottom, and that boost off, that kept him that 10th faster.
Yeah.
And that he figured that out. He learned that. He told, I forget if it was in the post-race, he didn't want to do sim this week. And I found that interesting. That just goes to show how good Kyle Larson is. He wants to go by the feel of the actual racetrack. I don't want to get this other stuff in my head that all this on the sim. Nope. He goes, according to him, he doesn't like sim because he doesn't think it translates as good as they quote unquote say it does. He would rather feel the racetrack, feel the car, and learn off of that. And that to me is a racer. That's instinct. That's, you want to know, you want to shake that car down yourself. And he said he figured that out in the truck race.
Yeah.
How to get on that concrete. He goes, I didn't think it'd work with the cup car, but it did. And, that just goes to show it's a dirt racer. They're going to go everywhere
they're
you can.
constantly searching.
Oh, this patch of dirt, here, this patch over here. Well, same thing with a worn out racetrack. There's little patches of, pavement here, over here. So that was just the domination by him to be able to manage those tires, manage that run. He talked about it where he was able to sail in easy. He goes, when I was lapping the cars, he's like, I was able to drive in, roll through. He goes, slower was faster because the slower he rolled that turn, he was able to get down on that concrete and turn his car down there to get the drive off. So I just thought that was cool how he explained how he found the speed, why he thought he was faster than the field. And another thing I thought was cool, he goes, when there was like 5 laps to go, he was able to look into the grandstands and see people leaving. And he's like, oh boy, he goes, I hope there's not a caution or, I hope, and like, that's how far ahead he was. So I just thought it was awesome, and give credit. I said the last couple of weeks, the winner didn't do anything really awesome or whatever to go for the win. We don't really talk about the winner all that much, but I thought Larson, what he did, and to whoop the all-star race to the best of the best, the people that were there, to just put a shellac in there, just goes to show that, it wasn't the car. It was everyone's that battling that same racetrack. Yeah. He knew how to manage his car and his tires.
And
you'll never hear us complain either about a good old fashioned ass. At least me, you'll never hear me complain about a good old fashioned ass kicking. Right. Like that was, that's part of the. That's like I said before, it's part of the sport. So no matter whether I like the guy or not, and I'm not saying I'm indifferent about Larson. I'm just saying, it's cool to see an ass kicking like that. Like he was out 11, 12 seconds in front of the rest of the field. Like sometimes, and now I don't want to see that every weekend, right? Like that's not something I want to see every weekend, but we see that, once a month, once every other week, whatever, like it's part of it.
Silver lining is the way I looked at this weekend. Find the good out of it, focus on the good, and kind of move on from there. And that's all you could ask for out of this racing weekend, I think.
To jump on your point too, you got to give credit to Cliff Daniels too. Just a phenomenal crew chief, because in practice and in the heat races, that car wasn't where Kyle needed it, and he got it there for him. So I feel like
did you hear what they did? And he was. So I heard
there's like a complete change, like a wild, drastic change.
So he drives the van and all the crew back and forth to the racetrack. And so he's driving to the racetrack, and I guess his crew and everyone, they're talking, and they're kind of, he said himself, he's like, man, he goes, I felt sick to my stomach almost. He's like, I felt nervous because the crew, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like, and they did it old school where they just all were talking out loud. What can we do? What do you think? Yeah. And they basically just like said, okay, let's just make a huge swing at this. Let's do that. Well, I'll take on, let's do a huge swing at it. And they all talked on the way over there, and they like said, let's go for it as a team, as a crew. And I thought that was pretty cool because they didn't know if it was going to work or not. And that was the scary part about it. And I thought that was pretty old school.
I love that that's how they get to the track too, because Eric, you've been with me how many countless times where you'd stop at the Wawa up by the Pocono racetrack and there'd be 2 or 3 vans getting gas and crews would be pouring out of the vans and just normal dudes going to get a sandwich, get a bag of chips, go to the racetrack and go to work. Like I think that's so cool that they were like in this van together, just bouncing ideas off of each other and just taking swings. I like that story a lot. That's cool.
And not only is Cliff Daniels driving the War Wagon and the team on the War Wagon, he's driving the team in the van too. So no job too small. But my checkers to jump on yours with Kyle Larson, I'm giving it to second and third place. I got to do it. I got to be a homer. 23-11. Just a super solid run from both Bubba and Tyler. I wish Fox showed more of their moves throughout the field, because I feel like we missed a lot of just progress throughout that, I guess, second stage, like that last 100 laps or so. I feel like they really dropped the ball. I feel like Fox really dropped the ball showing some of these battles throughout the field. And I feel like the race could have been perceived as better if they were able to show some of that. But just a great race. And then I got to give my honorable mention to the wet weather tires on Saturday, doing their job, getting us on the track, getting better laps in. And yeah, they were running faster lap times than the slicks too. We saw some great tire fall off and everything. What's up, Matt?
Can I say something real quick, and then we can keep it moving? So this is the second week in a row, right? One of us gave our checkers to Bubba, and I said last week, he's stringing together these top 5s, these top 10s now.
Yeah.
To everyone who hates Bubba Wallace, you're entitled to that. For whatever reason you want to hate him for, whatever. I mean, it's some of it's sickening, some of the stuff that happened to Bubba this weekend, and I don't even want to talk about that or give any of that light. You can look it up if you want to. But for all those haters out there for Bubba Wallace, you may as well walk out of the sport now, because he's getting good, and he's getting good right now, and he's going to start winning races. And I can see Bubba winning 2-3 races this season. He's got the consistency, and whenever a car gets consistently in the top 5, top 10, it's only a matter of time before he starts winning races. So for all the Bubba haters out there, you better strap in, because he's coming.
Yeah. I agree. Like, just the last couple of weeks, how many top 5s? I think he has 3 top 5s in the last few
3
weeks.
in a row.
Yeah. So like, he's definitely making hay. I wonder, and I was actually thinking about this morning as I was getting ready for work. I wonder if he took that Kenny Wallace advice and got himself like just a sports psychologist to kind of help with some of the stuff.
Whatever he has to do, man. It seems like right now he's doing good. It seems like he's doing good up here. So, and it's translating it onto the track. So,
and the same with Reddick the last few weeks. 23-11 just as a whole has been performing really well, and it's got me excited.
I wonder if Kurt Busch has something to do with that. He seems like he'd be a really great life coach.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it's from the way things look on social media and stuff. Kurt Busch is still so involved with that team. So it's really good to see. Who
got more hate than the Busch brothers?
Exactly.
And who knows how to deal with that better than the Busch brothers?
Yeah.
Right.
And you want to know what? Like, I'm kind of, in my head, I was thinking pro wrestling too. Like, Bubba just needs to fucking go full heel and just go
That's
into
why I
it.
loved it. I loved when he went the crybabies when they came out in intros.
Yeah.
And he threw the bird at the end. I love that. I loved it. I absolutely loved that.
And you want to know what? I'm just gonna say it. For anyone that was mad that he flipped off the camera,
you're a child. You're a baby. That is the sorry ass excuse for getting mad.
And if you look at the camera too, look in his eyes. He's looking past the camera. He doesn't even know he's on. He's flipping off someone in the background too.
Can I tell you guys something right now? And it's gonna be funny, and I'm betraying my father's trust. I apologize, Dad. You're gonna listen to this in a day or two. Literally. I'm not going to show you the rest of I'm not going to show it to the screen because we have a personal conversation going, but literally at 8:33, my father just texted me and said, the Bubba finger, so what? Keep it off TV, please. I don't know what side of the fence he's on there. I'm not sure what side whether he's pro Bubba or against Bubba. I just thought it was super funny that he literally just sent that to me as we're talking about it.
The only thing is, like, even if he knew he was on camera and he flipped it off or whatever, how often do we talk about just having drivers not showing personality, and then the guys showing personality and kind of laying into it, and now everyone's hating for that. So, like, who cares? It's a finger, you know? Like, we flip each other off all the time as a joke. Me and I was at the radio station the other day. Fucking my buddy Rocco was walking by. And once he passed, I go, "Hey, Rocco." He turns around, I go, "Fuck you!" Like, it's just.
Yeah, guess what? NASCAR uses the bird in their promos. How about when Tony Stewart was flipping off Kenseth and he threw his helmet at him? Like, they put the bird in a lot of their promos too. So you know what? If you wanted that out of there, sorry ass excuse to get mad.
Yeah. Anyways, my wreckers, I don't have one. There's nothing I really nitpick other than the lack of passing. But I think we expected at that point with the short track package and stuff. So I'm not even going to knock the track or the race for that. So no wreckers. I got no notes. And speaking of race notes, we saw wet weather tires used on an oval for the first time during the heat races. I thought it was a success. I think you guys are probably in the same boat. And then we talked about already, Ty Gibbs pit crew wins the pit crew challenge. Other than that, I don't really know what else to talk about of the race. I mean, I
have one thing.
Yeah,
quick.
I do too.
Okay.
I do too.
What if, because everybody said that grip strip, especially in 3 and 4, where everybody was hugging, right?
Yeah.
Why the hell didn't they put resin or PJ1 above that in the second groove to possibly give the second lane some? They love putting that shit down
everywhere.
2 years ago, they would have put that down even if it didn't need it. They're spraying the whole track with it. Now you put a grip strip down there where you know the cars are going to go there. Everything else is shit. Fill all that stuff in with resin or PJ1, something.
You want to know what? I didn't hear if they did anything with that. I would wonder if they did it and they just never really talked about it. But yeah, like you said, they used to put that shit on every track, everywhere.
Tire dragging, get the tire dragging out there, something like.
There was PJ1 in the grandstands. There was PJ1 out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
There was PJ1 on the highway heading into the racetrack. There was PJ1 on my car seat the one time. I mean, they spray that shit everywhere.
The only thing though, I know PJ1 takes heat to activate, and it's like ice until you get on there. And apparently, it was like ice riding around North Wilkesboro to begin with. So maybe we don't want it to be any slicker than it was too before it could really activate. But I agree. Like, apparently the resin doesn't need heat to activate. Right. So why not put resin down?
I thought they would have tried something, knowing that. Then again, I think they want to run on that surface, but I think maybe next year going forward, maybe they'll do something like that to create that second groove for an outside lane to possibly pass.
Yeah. Now I wonder too, like, at one point, do you repave North Wilkesboro? Because, like, I mean, they couldn't even.
Oh, you have to. You have to. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I think everybody agrees. Even Dale Jr. agrees that, like, it's got to be repaved, but they wanted to do it on the old pavement one time. Yeah.
He's pro Bubba. He's pro Bubba.
Okay, yeah.
The only thing that I had, then we can move on to the World 600. Was you know how in some workplaces they have like X amount of days without incident?
Oh yeah.
I think we need to have one on the wall back here in one of our backgrounds for Ross Chastain.
Yeah.
We are one day.
week.
We are one race incident free.
I love that idea.
we'll have to build a little graphic for the corner in the YouTube or something like that. Or if you could find, because your wife is a teacher, you know those calendars? You remember with the block calendars? Do you remember those? Does she have one of those that we can use where you can change the number on it?
I'll ask her.
All right. Yeah, that's all I have for the North Wilkesboro race. I don't know if there's really much to add besides that. I mean, Eric Jones had a really good run. I thought that was exciting.
That car was beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm glad he had a good run in that car. You know what I mean? Like, he was aggressive in the beginning too. He wasn't taking no prisoners.
Got himself a top 10. Again, those guys that were on that different pit strategy early on where they took the tires, they kind of just excelled. Everyone else seemed to really struggle, and it was hard to kind of keep track of some of the battles in the back at a certain point. I didn't even notice much going on in the ticker.
Ooh.
So what's up?
You know what I heard today too? The 24 had a completely thrown in setup that they just went crazy with.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet, since we're going to New Hampshire, I'm willing to bet they know the short track package is kind of, iffy. This is a non-points paying race. I bet they just I bet you multiple teams threw some wild shit out there to see if it worked or not. And it is what it is. You know what I mean? I bet there was a lot of testing at this track for short track packages, and a lot of crews, they said it, they threw some wild setups out there.
I mean, it's definitely possible, especially since like how much simulator data really was there for North Wilkesboro too. How much could you do in the sim? How much history do you have?
A lot of teams they just missed the mark too,
I mean, that's very possible. I mean, we look at some of those cars that dropped like a rock early on in that race. So but let's jump into last place. Everyone here on the Bumper Room podcast, everyone loves to talk about the winner, Kyle Larson, on a Monday. We also like to talk about the loser, and that was one Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He finished 4 laps down. He had some contact early on, actually with Eric Jones. Eric Jones getting super aggressive. He was tired of Ricky holding him up, and he moved him out of the way. Some good old fashioned bump and run. But that's all I have for that. I do have one pickle lane. It's been a while since we've done a pickle lane. Pistol Pete from SiriusXM NASCAR Radio Channel 90 tweeted earlier today. He's been bringing up the concept of midweek races. We saw some midweek races during the 2020 pandemic where we tried to make things up. I know the ratings weren't super solid for those races. I'm going to blame Fox on that one because there was a total lack of advertising on those. But how would you feel about the All-Star race and the truck race being a midweek race, giving that weekend off before the Coke 600? That way the teams and everyone can rest, and then going into the Coke 600, maybe like a Tuesday, Wednesday, weekday truck race and then All-Star race. What do you guys think about that?
I love it. Start the race at 7:00 on a Wednesday night, be done by 8:30, 9:00, and move on with your life. Like you said, give the industry the weekend off before, because that's a huge weekend off the track leading up to the Coke 600, because everyone's coming into town, man. Like Charlotte's the racing hub, the NASCAR racing hub. I know for years and years and years, the All-Star race was in Charlotte the weekend before the World 600. So everyone would be home already and they would get time to prepare and host all these events and whatnot. So yeah, I'm all for it.
How about you, Eric? What do you think about a midweek race?
Yeah, I mean, you look at North Wilkesboro and the modifieds were there, or the
Cars Tour, the late models, the Cars Tour.
Yeah. Great turnout for that. So you can't say that a midweek race won't have a turnout at the track either, let alone the viewers on TV. I think you'll get a good idea what this Thursday Thunder for the SRX series, what kind of numbers they bring in. I think that'll give NASCAR a great idea of if they run a Thursday night all-star race, to give that extra weekend off, what kind of numbers that they would get and if it's possible or not. So excited to see what those numbers produce on Thursdays. So maybe that
NASCAR fans are going to watch the race no matter when it is, whether it's a Sunday night, a Sunday morning, a Wednesday afternoon. Texas was rained out for 4 days a couple weeks ago. They raced on a Thursday afternoon. Dude, if there was a race overseas somewhere and they were racing at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning, our asses would be getting out of bed to watch a goddamn race at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
I would be all for that. I think that would be so much fun to wake up at like 3 a.m. and watch a race from overseas.
Yeah, just once. I wouldn't want that to be regular.
Tune in F1. That's how you get that.
Well, I don't want to do that either. You think, hey man, you thought North Wilkesboro was boring?
Yeah.
Watching F1 race. No, I'm sorry. I just checked too because I was curious. I think the race was over by like right around 9:30 too.
It wasn't bad.
So
it wasn't bad.
I think the All-Star race is the perfect race for this kind of experiment, and a truck race because truck races are always shorter. Where I think like 200 laps would be around a truck race, right? I don't remember how many laps the truck race was on Saturday.
I'll tell you what,
I didn't watch
NASCAR
it,
is
to be honest with
lucky
you.
they didn't bring the Xfinity series there because they would have blown the Cup Series right out of the water.
Yeah. Oh my
I would
God.
have loved to see the Xfinity fucking cars at North Wilkesboro.
I would love to see the Xfinity cars in North Wilkesboro. I think that would be a good race to watch.
I'd love to see the Xfinity cars in the Walmart parking lot. I just that series is unbelievable.
Speaking of though, great racing. We got a great race coming up.
Marty, you gotta come back with me.
Where?
The next NASCAR Cup race. It's the weekend preview.
And we're going back to paying points in Charlotte. Trucks on Track Friday night, 8:30 on FS1 for the North Carolina Education Lottery 200. Xfinity on Track Saturday, 1 p.m. on FS1 for the Alsco Uniforms 300. And that just might be the race of the weekend. And then Cup on Track for the Coca-Cola 600, 6 p.m. on Sunday on Fox. And I'm super excited because last year I think that was one of the best races of the season. And boys, to recap our bets from the All-Star race, I think last year we just gave 5 bonus points to whoever's driver came in the highest, and that was one Eric. He picked Joey Logano. He got you 5 extra points. I think he finished 11th, maybe 10th. Matt picked Kevin Harvick, and I picked Brad Keselowski. I came in 1 position behind Kevin Harvick, so I will pick first. Matt will pick second, and Eric, you will pick last. Matt, do you have any stats for Charlotte or anything like that?
No need for you guys to pick. I'm coming to you from the future.
Okay. It looks
I
like
already
you're in a
know
spaceship.
who won this race. It was awesome.
Okay.
I'll give you I'll let you know in just a moment.
All right. Well, I'm thinking, man, Toyota's been running pretty well at 1.5 miles. It's a long race. I'm going to go with a veteran Toyota driver. He dominated the 1 year till his engine blew. I'm going with Martin Truex Jr. on this one. Matt, was that who you saw in the future?
Martin's actually still racing. So I'm in the year 3048. And
Okay.
I know this is largely a visual gag I'm doing right now. So everyone who might be listening on Spotify is probably super confused why I'm coming to you from the future. But no, that is incorrect. Martin did not win. But his great-great-grandson does in 48 years from now.
Okay.
No, I'll tell you who's going to win this race. And it's one person. His car dominated last year.
Yeah.
Should have won. He's in a different car this year.
Oh. Okay.
I think I want to.
Okay.
I think I wanted to pick
It's a long race. Veterans know how to win this race.
Yeah.
This guy knows how to get around this track. Rowdy Nation stand up. Kyle Busch wins this race.
All right. I think it's a good pick. I think it's a great pick.
That's who I wanted, Matt. That is exactly who I wanted.
Because
I'll take it one step further too. I've got really bad news. Reddick comes in last.
I don't know. Reddick did really good in that 8 car last year.
All ball busting aside,
Yeah.
I thought about Reddick. Now I feel Kyle Busch is a gut pick for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Just because that 8 car was strong here last year, I'm sure it's going to be strong here again this year. And like you said, it's the long race, veteran driver. You got the whole temperature change and everything. That's why I went with Martin Truex Jr. I was between him and Denny Hamlin, to be honest with you.
Marty
last year. That's why it's like,
Marty led like 99% of that race 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You want to talk about an ass kicking? That like he kicked everybody's ass that night. I think he did it 2 years in a row, and he didn't win the first one, but then he won the second one.
He did, so what was it? Last year, Denny won. The year before that, I'm pretty sure MTJ won, and that was a dominant race. And then the year before that was when he was dominating, and then his engine blew. So,
do you remember the move that AD made last year where he came in from nowhere and he dropped down on after the last restart?
Matt, I was this close to picking him. I was this close to picking AD this week, and I'm like, I just can't trust him. Like I just can't.
He won the 600, and dude, he was in position last year. Go back and look at what Austin Dillon did last year if you don't remember. That was unbelievable. He came out of nowhere onto the screen.
I'm going with somebody who desperately needs this race. Desperately needs this to save, I think, I don't want to say career, but man, he just hasn't been getting into that victory lane. And I think this is a place where he might have an opportunity to get that done. And I think I'm just kind of hoping that he gets this win just to propel him along, because I like him as a driver, and I think the sport needs him. But who he's driving for is lacking right now in the Ford camp. But I just have a feeling I'm going with the 12 of Ryan Blaney.
Okay. I like it.
I thought you're going Brad. Okay.
Man, that's the tough thing though. Those Fords, man. I just feel like it's long. I feel like I wanted to go Denny, but his pit crew I don't trust. Yeah.
I wanted to go Kyle Busch because I think, like Matt said, veteran, he loves this racetrack. But I think this is a hopeful weekend for me, where I just would like to see Blaney get that, that monkey off his back and just be like, you know what? Okay, I got that win under my belt. Let's just shake all this bad, get the dark cloud over my head away. Yeah. I won. I got this. Now let's just start putting these good finishes down. So this week is a wishful pick for me.
Okay, I like it. Like I said, I hope Blaney gets a win soon, but at those Fords, it's just tough. But again, every week we talk about how the Fords you can't trust them, and then Joey Logano gets a top 10 or Ryan Blaney gets a top 10. So it's like pick and choose.
I think this is a race. It's long, where at the end, I think people are going to get frisky. They're going to take somebody out. And I think those Fords, once again, that are running in 18th are going to come away with a top 10 finish because people take each other out.
Dude, someone else to consider, fantasy or not fantasy. Well, yes, fantasy wise, but also gambling wise, is that number 1 of Ross Chastain. We're one day without an incident with him. But seriously, he led the most laps last year. He led 66 laps last year. He had the best driver rating of a 121.3. I know all these stats off the top of my head. I'm definitely not reading off of Racing Reference. But he finished 15th. So he had a really, really good car last year, Ross did, and obviously he's our points leader.
But honest to God, Slick Willie 2 Clocks is probably going to go out and win this race and dominate.
Probably, you're right.
It's just that's just my feeling. My gut feeling is I wanted to pick Slick Willie just for his continued dominance. Hendrick usually dominates, but it's like, I'm gonna go a little different this week and go wishful thinking with Blaney. But it feels like one of those races where like Slick Willie's just gonna run away with it.
if you don't overthink it and you just think of like the most logical, what's most logically the most realistic outcome, like it's probably going to be Slick Willie leading 399 laps.
Yeah. Also, I just went through. Martin Truex Jr. won the 2019 Charlotte race. Some of these races, I don't even remember. That 2020 season was all fucked up. But
yeah, dude, that COVID, those COVID years, like throw me, not just in NASCAR, but like in life in general, throw me so far off of like any type of timeline.
Even like 2021 and part of 2022, like 2022 is where I started feeling like normal, but the passage of time between those 2 years, it's just so confusing. So I apologize for getting some of those stats wrong. I don't know when the fuck Martin Truex Jr. ran really well and then is injured.
But he did. It happened.
But he did, and hopefully it happens this week. We are 13 races into the 2023 season. We have 9 different winners. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Kyle Busch, William Byron, Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Martin Truex Jr., and Denny Hamlin. Who can do it? Who can last the longest in the Coke 600? Will it be Kyle Busch getting his 3rd win of the season? Will it be Martin Truex Jr. getting his 2nd win of the season? Or will Ryan Blaney finally get that monkey off of his back, get a win for Ford, and get himself a win on the season after going winless last year? Following a year that he got the most wins of any season. He got 3 wins in 2021. No way.
Nope.
We will find out this Sunday, Memorial Day weekend, for the Coke 600, 6 p.m. on Sunday on Fox. And then, fellas, are we going to do the podcast on Tuesday that we have Monday off? Do you want to do that? That way we can enjoy it.
Whatever works best. Let's play it by ear. Listen, listeners, listen to me. You'll get the podcast when you get the podcast.
Yeah. No, let's do it on Tuesday night. We'll enjoy the long weekend to its fullest. We'll take Monday off. We'll get you a new episode on Tuesday, and we will break it all down for you then.
Hold up. It is Memorial Day weekend, so let's not forget what the weekend's actually about.
Making memories, right? No, honoring the memories of all those fallen troops.
There you go.
So yes, NASCAR does a great job of doing all of that in the pre-race and everything. All the cars will have a fallen soldier on them. So yes, thank you for everything that they did and the lives given, of course. And we'll break it all down for you this Tuesday. Enjoy your hot dogs too. For Matt the Statman Reilly and Eric Daytona Ron, I'm Michael D. White saying have a good night.